Let me see if it's going to work.
Yep.
Okay, guys, just checking to see if this is converting on the Facebook page. 1 second, and then we are going to get started with the live. Yes, amazing. Okay, we are on. How is everybody doing on this incredible, what day are we at? I hate that meme right now. My goodness. We're today's Monday, April 20th. For those of you who don't know, now you know. And today I am so excited to talk to you guys about homeschooling. And I have with me an incredible educator and expert on the topic. But I think one of the reasons why I wanted to include this as part of the virtual health spa was because it's not necessarily so much about the tactics of what do we need to teach our kids, but more so dealing with the overwhelm and how to best tackle this from a place that not only allows us to show up as our best parent selves, but then to allow our kids to show up and thrive as well. So, of course, I wanted to bring on a very special guest because she not only has been in the education, sort of realm for, I will say, 35 40 years, so quite a long time, but she is also my mom. And so I think one of the reasons why we have been so sane right now in terms of keeping up, our own education practices with Madison is because she has a way of breaking everything down so simply so that you can really get clear on what matters, which is going to allow you to remove the overwhelm and focus on the things that are most important. So I obviously, for those of you who, have watched my lives before, I do not do introductions because I rarely do the people that I'm interviewing justice. So I'm going to ask Robin to introduce herself to everybody.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I have been teaching since I was in my early 20s. And as my career progressed, I thought I just wanted to be a teacher for the rest of my life. But as you go along and you go along and you go along, opportunities arise for you. And so I left the classroom in around 2006 and became a consultant with my school board, and then moved into being a consultant with the government. And I currently, even though I've been retired for a few years now, I'm still working.
It's a fake retirement.
It is. I can't stand not working. So I'm currently working with a publisher as well as with our Minister of Education here in Ontario to support kindergarten students who are English language learners. So my passion, besides my children and my grandchildren, is your children and you, because you are parents. So I'm so glad that Lindsay invited me today.
Amazing. Okay, so let's just dive in because I think one of the things that have come up a lot, and we've talked a lot about this in the community, and I've done a couple polls. I think that one of the things I think for me that is really important is, what does learning at home look like? Like now that it's sort of fallen on our shoulders to educate our kids, as for me, and I'm sure for many other moms, like we have no idea what homeschooling looks like. So what does learning at home look like?
And I'm so glad, Lindsay, that you started with learning at home, because homeschooling is quite a different thing. Here in Ontario, and I'm sure in the States, you sign reams of paper. You sign on with the government here to say that you are going to homeschool your children, and you will be solely responsible for their education if you do that. You are not doing homeschooling. You are filling in the gaps that your children might be left with while they're not in school. And you do that all summer, and you do that in breaks. So it's not homeschooling, it's learning at home. And the difference for you and for us and for Lindsay and Marcus and their family right now is that we don't have the luxury or the distractions of being able to take our children out places and have fun family events. We're home. It's kind of like, and I know many of you are very young, but it's kind of like a book, Swiss Family Robinson, where a family was marooned on a desert island, and together they had to figure out how it was going to work. So that's exactly what you're doing,
That's
except
exactly how I feel right now.
and your desert island luckily has the advantage of social media and ways to connect. So I want you to think about that. It is an unusual situation. That desert island piece is the piece that causes the stress, not the learning at home.
Okay. And so within that, so, both Marcus and I are entrepreneurs and are balancing busy schedules. I know there are a ton of parents out there that are also doing the same, whether or not one parent is home and working full time, both parents are home and trying to work full time, or even, got like parents who actually are on the front lines having to go out every single day and work. How would you, like, what advice would you give them in terms of, being able to best manage this so that they have the ability to take care of, what they need to take care of in terms of their work, but also support their kids?
So I think one of the things that you're really speaking to, Lindsay, is the fact that no matter where you are and what you're doing right now, we are at an enhanced level of anxiety and stress. And whether you're working full time out of the house, you're in stress. If you're at home, you're in stress. If you're out of work, you're in stress. And your kids are going to pick up on that all the time. So that's why
My kids are, my youngest, even her sleeping schedule. So yes. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So they're going to pick up. No, they're going to pick up on it. So I think one of the things you have to realize is that this is an unusual, unprecedented time. But no matter what happens, no matter how much you do with your child or how little you do with your child, because of all of these stresses, your child will not fail, will not lose a grade, will get into university if they're that age, will pass, because ultimately curriculum is the responsibility of the state or the province. It's not your responsibility. So at our end in Ontario, we're currently grappling with how do we pick up these kids next year and accelerate their program in the next year. So there's going to be a big gap in Ontario for our kids. There'll be a big gap for kids wherever they are. So next year when they go to school, those teachers are going to be combining learning to move them quicker to make up for the gap. What you do at home is a bonus. If you can keep them where they are or move them on further and not let them lose any time or any of the skills they've picked up, that's a bonus. Here in Ontario, and I don't know how many of the people there are from Ontario, but our teachers and our boards of education are working together with parents. So they're actually contacting parents, putting online learning in place, even prescribing or suggesting hours. So for instance, a smaller child, grade 1 to grade 6, they're expected to do between 5 and 6 hours of schoolwork that the teacher helps design a week. If they're older, it can be upwards to 10 or 12, but remember that older students are often on independent projects, guided by, in Ontario, their teachers. So we're talking about those people today who don't have that luxury of being guided by a teacher.
So that's amazing to know that. I mean, not only is it realistically, you just want to try to squeeze in potentially an hour to 2 hours a day with your kid, but that ultimately, whatever you do is a bonus.
It's a bonus.
The states and the provinces recognize that at this time, we're only going to be able to do so much.
That's right. And ultimately, education is the state's or the province's responsibility, planning that. I think the thing that you as moms need to remember is that you need to think about, I was thinking about this morning when I was going over this with Lindsay. I think you need to think about 3 pillars that you really can support. You can support the mental health of your children. You can support the emotional health of your children. That's your realm. And so is the physical health of your children. So if your child is stressed out, or if your child is feeling unease or showing signs of being like lazy or unmotivated, that's in your realm. You can help with that. You're the mom. So you can dig deep and find out how to solve that. As far as learning, your role is more like a facilitator or a guide. So your children can do things at home, and we'll talk about it, that will help them thrive when they get back to school. We are going to talk about those things.
I love that. I think that just in itself makes me feel lighter, just to know that I'm supported, and my kids will be supported.
Mhm.
Like, you know, even if we have, because for example, like Marcus and I today, you know, we had such a busy day. Like I've been on calls all day, he's been on calls all day, and you know, Madison hasn't gotten sort of like the intentional attention that we love to give her today. But then at the same time, it's nice for us to know that, because we operate sort of in that flexibility, thanks in part a lot to you, is that, you know, some days are going to be better than others. Some days, like, you know, every single day she's going to show up as her best self. Every single day we're going to show up as our best self. Some days that's going to be at 10%. Other days it's going to be at 100. And so I think it's nice to sort of say, okay, today is not the greatest day. Let's tackle this tomorrow.
And I think when we're speaking about that, Lindsay, Maddie's really young. So at the end of the day, and Lindsay has a wonderful, wonderful mantra that she says with her daughter every night. And there's a very good bedtime routine. At the end of the day, and no matter how young they are, you can say, you know what I loved about today, Maddie? What I loved that we did, I loved this. This was really great for me. And then Maddie, all of the nonsense that happens, all of that discomfort, because things are never perfect, she'll just go to sleep remembering that best time of the day. And then, you know, to say, and then you say, you know what, Maddie, tomorrow it's going to be even better. We're going to try something new. So every child, one of the things that I think we worry about is one of the things, and Maddie's too young yet, but is over programming our kids. So for instance, when Lindsay was young and her sisters were younger, and I was a teacher, obviously, in a classroom, which was pretty, you know, I was working at home too at night. We tried to limit the number of things that the girls were in, because what I noticed as a teacher in the classroom was that kids that were over-programmed. So after school, you go to daycare, and then there's swimming, then after swimming, there's brownies or whatever. Those children are already feeling stress because they already have this day that's laid out like this.
They're so structured.
They're so structured. So one of the things that happens is when the structure is removed, they don't know what to do because their life is so tightly structured. So we're talking about in this time right now, we cannot live our lives tightly structured, which is causing all of us stress because that's how we operate. What we need to do is think about a routine, a flexible routine that allows for the shifts of how kids are feeling, how we're feeling, like you and Marcus today, how busy you are. You probably didn't know this was going to come up today. You didn't know at 6 o'clock in the morning that Maddie was going to wake up to be this Maddie. And Grandma always says Saddie or Baddie or Maddie. We're never sure which Maddie it is. Is it the Saddie Maddie or the Baddie Maddie?
Today she's
maybe it's just the actual wonderful Maddie. And all kids, you know, so I think we just have to let it, just breathe deeply and just take it and do the best we can. And
okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so on the topic of Baddie Maddie, so what would be your advice then? Because I hear so much from parents, like, you know, who have resistant, like, you know, their kids are resistant to doing the schoolwork and they can't get them to do the schoolwork. So what would be your advice in those types of situations?
Okay, so one of the things that I've learned in the latter part of my career is that lots of times we don't do deep enough dives into the reasons why kids aren't performing. So we make an automatic assumption that they're just being annoying, or they're just being resistant, or they're just being, I can't deal with this right now. But really, I think you have to find out, what are they resistant to? Because some kids, you put a workbook in front of them and you say, or what we used to call pages, and you say, now you have to do 10 pages today. Some kids would be super, super resistant to that, because
I
that's
feel
not
resistance to that right now.
right now. So I think you have to think about that. Are they resistant to that? Why are they resistant? Is it the task you're asking them to do? Is it the time of day? Maybe they're better at the afternoon. Maybe they're better in the morning. Maybe it needs to be in small, oh shoot, I thought I turned my phone off. I'll just let that go. Maybe it's just in small little packages. Oh, that's just Lindsay's dad. So maybe it needs to be in little tiny packages that we, it's like Maddie on your
Every
thing.
single time, I know, and then I can't focus.
I know, we're going through a bit of a family thing here, so that was probably part of that call. And I told them not to call me between 2 and 3. So anyway, the other thing is their feelings and emotions. So Lindsay does a Facebook live every morning, and there's some mornings when I look at her and I go, it's going to be a tough one, because you can already see in her face that there's something she's not 100%. She's bringing her best game for that day, but it's not her best game for other days. And I think you got to face it, your kids are too. This is stressful. Mm-hmm. They're not seeing their friends. They're not doing the things they usually do. The ways that they connect with their friends, and we have to make sure that they do, are not always the face-to-face ways. It's huge for kids. Mm-hmm. And so they're sad. And so then they're resistant. Maybe they just want to lie on the couch and watch TV all day. Not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. But you got to find out why they're resistant. A lot of it, it's exactly like you. Not you, Lindsay, but everybody.
Everybody.
Lack of control. There's one thing your kids can control. It's what they do in the day in front of you. And they want to control you too, because there's nothing in this world they can control right now. Mm-hmm. So resistance is coming from a lot of different places for kids. I think the thing that we have to remember is let it go. Don't get into the battle. Don't get into the anger, because anger causes stress and anxiety and takes you down that dark hole.
Well, it's funny that you should say that, because I find that even with us, and I think that because kids are so little, they're so much more susceptible to energy. Our lives are so big, so we can, Marcus will wake up in the morning and he may be having a really, crappy day, but because I've got all my stuff going on, I'm not, whereas I feel like Madison and Sienna pick up on it so much more easily.
They do.
But I find that, whenever she, just on the whole topic of control, I find that because my world is spinning out, it's like a perfect storm, because my world is, there are elements of it right now that are out of control. I feel like the one thing I can control is her, because she's my kid and she has to listen to me and I'm the parent. And so we get in this, and she's trying to sort of assert herself and she wants to control everything. And then it's almost like two toddlers, because essentially in ego form, that's what we are. We're like two toddlers sort of fighting over control together. And it's just, it doesn't even make any sense. In the moment, it does. In the moment, I'm like, she needs to do what I want her to. But then afterwards, I'm like, I just got down on her. I just got down on her level. Whereas I'm the adult, I need to be the one to sort of rise above it for her.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we forget that when we make decisions, we've had lots of time to, in most cases, decisions in our life, decisions about what we're going to do that day, we've pre-thought those. We're going to go for a walk at 10:30. Nobody knows that at the time except Lindsay and Marcus. Maddie doesn't really know that more, unless you upfront it. So lots of times resistance is caused by, you're telling me what now? Whereas if we know ahead of time what's coming up, the resistance drops down because kids go, okay, I may not want to work on school, do anything about I may not want to read today in a book, but there's options for reading. So if you're not going to read in a book, then if there's no book that you're interested in, then let's go on the computer, on the internet, and find a topic that you're interested in. That's at a level, your reading lexicon level, and then they'll read. So there's options all over the place. And I think that that's one of the things. Resistance can be broken down. If it couldn't, there wouldn't be very many kids being successful in school. Because
so many of them are.
As a teacher, you need to work with those resistant kids, and you need to go in a sneaky back door, either loving them to pieces and telling them how great they are and wow, that's a great job, and look, you did this little job, tomorrow you can do this job, all that ongoing praise and encouragement, but also backdooring it. If you hate writing about something that the teachers told you to write about, I, as a primary teacher, would say, so you don't want to write about the sun today? If we're studying the solar system, what are you interested in writing about?
What do you want to write about?
What do you, and especially at home, who cares what they write about? Because they're not doing assignments. They're not doing assignments. They're practicing reading and writing. That's what they're doing. So you don't have to give them topics. They can choose. One thing before we move on, Lindsay, I just wanted to say, because this has always stayed with me. It stayed with me as a mother. It stayed with me. It's just stayed with me my whole life. My very first year of teaching, I taught grade 5, and I was like 21.2 days old.
Oh my God.
When I started teaching, and I taught grade 5, and I spent a lot of times in tears and frustration because of all of these things we're talking about right now, because I was stressed out, probably came through to the kids. Anyway, one of the teachers that I worked with, I said, I just can't get through this kid. I can't get through to these kids. Some of them, not all of them. And I had an older teacher work with me. And she says, you know what, Robin, what do you think? She said, do you think all the good kids are like stuck at home somewhere and the parents are just sending you all their worst kids? She said, and I looked at her and she said, Robin, every parent sends you the best kids they've got. They're the best because they're working their best to make them the best. And I think on those days, and so it switched the way I thought about things, because even kids that were struggling with behavior or struggling with whatever they struggled with at school, or special needs, I would look at them and I'd go, you know what? You may not be my best, but you're their best. And because you're their best child, you're going to be my best child because I'm about you and your mom and dad. And it switched the way I worked. And I think that was the way I taught and have lived most of my life because of that one word.
And I think that it's so fair to say, because it's true. Like, there are going to be so many, not every single day, Marcus and I are showing up. Like, we're not showing up as our best selves, but we are ultimately giving the best of what we've got that day.
That's right.
And so I think that it just makes sense that our kids are doing the same. So it's nice to be able to think of it that way, because then you can actually show compassion for them instead of getting frustrated. Because you're like, okay, man, you're just not like, I mean, there's so many times where I look at Marcus and I was like, it is just going to be one of those days for Maddie today. And then, but it's because I can recognize that in myself and he can recognize that in himself. So it's kind of, it helps us. I mean, it doesn't always make it 100% better, but it helps us to sort of cut everybody some slack to say, you know, we just got to take our expectations, I guess, like down a notch.
And just because you have a bad morning in life doesn't mean you have a bad afternoon or a bad evening. So all of these little pockets of time where things are frustrating, they're just a pocket in time. If you can go at the end of the day and say, you know what, this part was really hard, and this was really, and older children you can do this with, they need to learn to reflect and think about things. This part was really hard for me. It was really hard for you. This part was really wonderful. What can we do about that? Kids need to have that. That's the mental health. That's the emotional health. It's huge. And that gives them control. That gives them the feeling like, you know, we're all in this together.
We are,
It's not
yeah.
mommy and daddy running the show. We're in it together. So, which is, you know, that whole desert island analogy.
So then how can we help our children, and I guess ourselves, show up as our best every day?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about it because, I mean, I certainly don't show up my best every day, and and neither does your father. But I think for me, when you guys were little and things were tough, because Lindsay's dad traveled a lot, so we were kind of on a little desert island without a dad but I did have friends to reach out to and things. I think you need to have a routine, especially now, a flexible routine so everybody knows what's coming next in the day. Flexible. A schedule to me is rigid. It's very rigid because if you don't accomplish it, then you feel that you didn't accomplish something. But a routine says, you know what? It allows for flexibility, it allows for personality, and it allows for everybody's needs. So for instance, let's talk about if you have a preteen or a teen. Research has shown that once you hit puberty, your sleeping schedules start to shift. So by the time a kid is 14, 15, even into 19, their sleep schedule is not your sleep schedule. They sleep in and
All of them.
parents go, oh my God, they're not getting up to noon and they're staying up till midnight. Yeah. And you can almost read any article on teen sleep patterns and you'll see that that is scientifically true. So if I had teens or preteens at home and I was working at home, my morning schedule would be, guess what? My non-negotiable here is you guys sleep until 11, I'm working. Nobody bother me. No, you're on your own. If you wake up early, you're still on your own. This is my time. You just made it my time. And so that's a flexible routine.
Oh my God, I would love that.
Well, you're doing the same thing with Madison. It's just that she's in, your afternoons. And I mean, older she gets, even within this period, if she gets up a little early and you're both busy, you can say, you know what, Maddie? If you wake up early, you got to spend some time in your bedroom playing by yourself. Try it, see what happens. It's not going to be wonderfully successful at first, but eventually she'll get it. So that's one thing I would think a lot about is that flexible routine. And the other thing is, and this is a big one, shared responsibility. From what I hear from Lindsay, and I even see it in Lindsay, moms feel that they are totally responsible for everything. Even though their husbands have responsibility, those responsibilities are actually assigned by...
We talk about this all the time.
And I am the same, and I think almost all women are, assigned by like my husband's responsibilities, and he has his own little things, but I'm always assigning him things. So I'll say, today you need to do this, or we need to do this. No, you need to do this. You need to do this. So the shared responsibility idea, if I had the kids at home in my house and I didn't have anywhere to go, or and a physical distancing was in place, I'd have to say, you know what, this is our desert island here. And let's figure out all the things that we need to do here to make things work. So it might consist of mommy has to work sometimes in the day. Daddy has to work sometimes in the day. You have some learning time that you need. There's also yard work and housework and all those things. I think what I would do, and I haven't tried it, but I've seen it done, is I would create almost like a web or a mind map of all those non-negotiable things that we need to do in a day and in a week. And then there's some things down to the minutest point of taking out the garbage, but even setting the table or emptying or loading the dishwasher or all those things. That's your list, but kids have lists too. So what are the things they need to do for them? They have non-negotiables too. So they could say things like, every day I need to talk to my friends for half an hour, or every day I need to do this.
Go out and ride my bike.
Or whatever. So they also have a thing in this non-negotiable chart. Once it's done, then you start dividing up. And people are not assigned the task, they choose the task. So to make this little desert island work, look at all these jobs. Well, there are some that just mommy and daddy can do, or just mommy can do, or just daddy can do. But look at all these ones. They need to get done. Oh my gosh, there's like 25 jobs here. There's 3 of you. That works out to 1 job a day almost. That's pretty amazing for the 3 of you. So, and I know that some people believe in reward charts. If that's how your family works, that's fine. But I'm all about self-reflection. At the end of the day or the end of the week, I'd look at that chart and I'd say, these things didn't get done. Okay, so-and-so, how come that didn't happen? What was the matter? Instead of the yelling and the screaming and the, why didn't you do this? And just, why didn't you do it? Kids need to articulate why they're not picking up on that, on those jobs, if it's 2 jobs.
It's funny that you say that, because even so Marcus and I, for a couple months now have implemented this sort of strategy in our home about the shared, because, we identified that one of the big things that was causing me so much stress was the fact that even though he would help with chores, I was still the one who was, who knew what had to be done, when it had to be done, even in terms of groceries. He would always do the grocery shopping. I made the list. Like, I was the one who knew what brand of whatever we needed. And so that was causing me stress in the back of my head. And I think it's funny that you say that, because we actually did that exercise where we listed all of the chores. We went through like every single chore in our household that needed to be done. And then we each picked the ones that we loved doing, which for me was amazing, because like, I hate cleaning the bathroom. And then he picked the bathroom. But then the best thing was, like, to your point, after each week for the first little bit, we sat down and we reflected on what was working and what wasn't working. So like, if he was missing the bathroom, then I was like, and without even getting annoyed, like, it was more of a discussion of, okay, so why didn't you clean out? Why didn't the bathroom get done this week?
What happened? Yeah.
And then through that exercise, then we started, it was almost like our minimal level of care, where we said to each other, we were like, okay, does the bathroom need to get cleaned every single week? If it doesn't need to get cleaned, amazing. And then so now, like, we determined that there are chores that we have in our house that don't necessarily need to get done every single week. And together we negotiated on what that looks like for us. So like, to me, I was like, okay, fine. The tub just needs to be cleaned every 2 weeks. It doesn't have to be cleaned just every 2 weeks. That's totally fine. That was fine by him. And then there's like no discussion.
And the other thing is, if the tub is bugging you and you clean it, that's your choice.
Yes.
Right? Because Marcus has already said he'd do it. So you cannot blame somebody for not doing their job if you take it on. You have to stay the course. And I was thinking, even, we talk about Maddie a lot, and because she's only 2.5, when I was working this through, I thought, when Lindsay was 2.5, because a lot of the time I was a single mom because her dad was traveling, she had chores. Did she do them by herself? And so did her little sister. Did she do them by herself? No, she did them with my guidance. So even like
right now, Maddie does it with, we have chores for Maddie right now.
So I would once my little one was walking or whatever and able to understand, I would do that with parental guidance. It teaches them responsibility. It teaches them that idea of it. I'm not just a kid here taking a free ride, and mommy and daddy have got this whole thing. And it's like, we're a family. We're in this together. That's what a family is. So you're actually, weirdly enough, in this time of terrible, terrible stress and anxiety, we're reinventing for a lot of people what a family is, because they're together. Mm-hmm. And there's so many families now where they barely meet except to pass in the kitchen as they pick up something to go to their next thing. So in a way, I think, it's kind of, if you look back on it when this is all over, you may find some really special things that happened.
That's amazing. So, sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I was going to say, where are we going to next, dear?
Well, because before you were talking, I think the other thing is on the topic of teaching, So how much time, and we sort of talked about this
Oh
earlier,
yeah.
how much time do kids need to invest like in some sort of reading or schoolwork? What would your best recommendation be?
So I think you have to you can trick kids into doing all kinds of things. And one of the things, and I don't know, the backgrounds of the moms that you're working with, but project-based learning is a huge thing in a lot of districts, in both in Canada and in the States. And project-based learning is based on kids' interests. So for instance, and we're seeing a little bit of this in the paper right now, kids say, and it's another web, it's another thing, it's questioning, it's diving deep, it's being a researcher. You need to find out what your kids are really passionate about. So I had given an example to Lindsay about a typical 8-year-old boy might be interested, well, they're definitely interested in building. So, but they might be interested in, well, how does that bridge stay up, or bridges? So if you think about it, if you say bridges, man, that would be a fantastic thing to study and learn about and build. And when you go back to school, you'll be able to share all of this with your teacher, like your constructions, your research. And as a guide and a facilitator of learning, your role as a mom is to keep with the questions and keep with the, wow, you could try this. I really like those pictures that you took off the internet about those bridges. I wonder what it's the I wonder keeps the kids going. What I've noticed in our papers here in Toronto lately is there's a lot of kids. We're having, in our COVID-19 experience here, a lot of elderly, and I imagine it's through the States as well, are the victims of COVID. And I've noticed families now, in the paper they've been putting, it's all good news stories, which is amazing.
Mhm.
How they've decided to write letters to people and drop them off, and make
Oh, I love
videos,
that.
and bringing the outside in. So make a video of them going on a walk and talking about the trees and doing, or animals, or so that's another thing. If your kids, and that actually teaches a lot about community and giving back. And so there's all kinds of things kids can do that don't involve a Walmart workbook. And
Mhm.
that is why, even when I was teaching, and my parent and I taught most of the little ones, my parents would say, what can we do with them at home? And I would say, the best thing you can do with them is take them for a walk, gather things, bring them home. If they're older, look it up. What kind of leaves did we pick
They
up?
could take pictures, like,
Oh yeah, it can go on and on and on. And it only goes on as long as the kids are interested. When it's done, it's done. And I think if you can capture that, kind of the things that they're doing, even in photos as they're working on it, or if they've gone to a website, capture a picture of that website if it was a really good one, then they can retell. Even if they don't bring the projects in, they can make a scrapbook or some kind of a record to retell. This is what I did when I was home for 2 months. These are
mhm.
the things I learned about. And it's going at it through that lens is a lot easier for kids. And the older your kid, the easier. So for instance, I was working in a grade 8 class a couple of years ago, and these kids decided on their own that the way they were going to learn their whole language curriculum and science curriculum was the study of parts of the body. So you would not have believed the 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 kind of work these kids produced, because they got to choose. Like, one kid was interested in the brain. I have no idea what they were talking about, but they knew all about it, and they did it with the teacher acting as a guide. And a parent can do the same thing. You don't know the curriculum, but you sure know your kids, and you sure know what they know.
Oh,
So
well, especially right now, it's almost like I can remember back. I can't remember who did it. One of us did it, but like right now with spring upon us, like it would be so cool if your kid obviously was into that to like, go out into the garden and plant stuff. And then you could like track the things that you're planting and watch them grow and take photos every single day. And like, you know what I mean? You could have like you could do like a whole vegetable garden.
there's so much. And I mean, some kids are
There's so
really
much.
there, and and everything is learning. I think we think that if it's not right in front of us in a book, nobody's learning. Everything is learning. So for instance, even with Maddie, we've talked about this so many times. Maddie sorting clothes according to color, or Maddie putting things in her drawer in the right spot. That's sorting. That actually is mathematics. And geometry, fitting things into things. So,
and we count everything. Like we
counting.
We count everything now.
And she's a great counter. Like she really is. And you know, it's not drill and kill. It's learning in a natural way. So I remember a few months ago, Marcus was trying to do flashcards with her, and I said, oh, that's interesting. And then Marcus said to me like a few days later, well, she only hung around for about, I don't know, 5 minutes. And I said, 5 minutes, that's really longer than I would have anticipated. But there's so many other ways Maddie loves to learn. And like games of matching, she's good at, she loves it if somebody's matching with her. And so I think you need to look at, the age of your kid. The littler ones are going to need more of your attention. The older ones should be able to go on their own and just fit into your day, the learning, but also the fun. And
totally.
Right. And if the learning is the fun, even bonus.
So then a lot of schools have shared, and you may have already touched on this, but a lot of schools have shared curriculums and stuff to do with their parents. So for those who haven't got anything handed down, is this the type of stuff that you would be recommending?
Right. Because, I mean, the thing is, yes, absolutely. Because I think it's something that you can do together or they can work on their own, but it is based on their interest. So it's not an assignment that you're giving them. It's something that they, in these non-negotiables, as part of their responsibility, they're going to show that they've been doing something with reading and writing and math or whatever. They have to show that during this time, mommy's working, daddy's working, and they also have a job, and it's called school. But this isn't school. This is just showing, that I'm still learning and I didn't stop. And I think it's capturing the learning at the end of the day. Well, what did we learn today? What did you do? And then they can say, wow, you know what? I am moving forward. I am learning.
So then it really is more about just having like real life experiences now with them than it actually is about, it's like you said, like that textbook, like that drill sort of.
Yeah. And I mean, we can't take our kids out. We in Toronto, they can't play on the playgrounds. They can't, there's so many restrictions, but you can still go out. You can still get in your car and go for a drive and find a spot that you can be away from other people. And I was talking to Lindsay's dad about this, and I said, we used to live near a creek when Lynn was growing up. And I said, it would be amazing to take Madison and Sienna to Curran Hall and walk along that little creek where the ducks are. And that's not really a park. It's called a ravine. There's nothing in it. No one would stop you. So it's that kind of rolling down a hill, and once the weather isn't so cold here, but it's those kinds of things. Kids need to be outside every day. They need a few things. There are a few things just like you, just like me. You need to have your exercise. You need to have time to think and be by yourself. And then you need to have time to engage with your own family and with your friends. Those things.
And good nutrition.
And
I'm biased.
Good food. Yes. Emotional, physical, all of that. Right. And I think that we just have to, I was just saying to Lindsay's dad the other day, I'm a walker. So if I'm stressed, or if I'm working on a project and I'm stuck, or if I'm sad, or even if I'm happy, it doesn't really matter. I need to walk. And when I walk alone and I walk fast. And that's the Robin walk. That's the Robin's health walk.
Which none of us come up with.
That's my walk that I need by myself. It's kind of like you need to go to your meditation space. That's my meditation time. Every once in a while, Lindsay's dad will say, can I come with you? And I'll go, oh, darn. It's great. I love my husband with my whole heart. But then it isn't.
But he slows you down.
It's not Robin's walk anymore. It's Robin and Mike's walk, which looks really different. Wonderful, but different. And so I think we have to think about that with our kids. They need time with us, but they also need time by themselves. And they need time to think about, kids are just the same as us. they need to journal, or they need to reflect, and they need that time alone. They need to meditate. So somewhere, and if they haven't learned it, then this is a perfect time to
Totally.
teach them.
And I think it's really important too, because like even as parents, like we aren't giving ourselves, I feel like it's so easy for us to forget that. Like we really struggle to give ourselves what we need right now. And I think so many times it's like, it's almost like you say, it's like making it part of that routine. And I think for Maddie, like in, you know, in particular, like she sort of like in the afternoon, she knows that like, you know, after lunch, we sort of quieted down a little bit. And then, you know, there's a little bit of, we have like a reading time, and then we're getting ready for her nap time. And then she goes down. And I think like it's knowing that, and sort of setting them up to like kind of anticipate that, like that
Mhm.
really, because like now it's part of her routine, so it makes it less, like it makes it less resistant. And I mean, and it's great for Marcus and I, like even for us, like we, because I've never been like the, like I've always admired you for this, because I've never been like the mat mom. Like I can't, I really struggle to play with Maddie with like, you know, certain things. Like I'm not good like on the mat with like a lot of her little toys that she likes. Most of the time, like I'm the mom where I'm like, let's get outside, let's do something.
Which is
And,
great.
and so I think that like that's what I was gonna say, is like I think that it's really, and Marcus is great at the mat. So I think it's like kind of using your strengths and what you like too, so that it's enjoyable for like for both of you too. Because then Maddie, like, you know, when I, because we break up our days, so like I'll have some time with the kids and he'll have some time, and then we get to like offshoot work for each other, like, so it's nice. So then if I take her out, then it's like she loves being outside and I love being outside, and then it's really enjoyable. And like, you know, then she can come in and then she like does like stuff with her dad, like, so I think it's
And
so
I think what you said too reminds me of the fact that we have Sienna, who is not as she has her own little demands, and she's a whole different personality than Maddie. But I think it's important that Maddie has time alone and Sienna has time alone, and then they have time together. I think every lump, and this is a problem with living on a desert island, is, you know, making time. It doesn't have to be a long time, but just making time to spend with a child on its own.
mm-hmm.
So if you have 3 kids, maybe it's, you know, it's, I think it's a wonderful thing if you could try and spend, you know, just a little bit of time on their own with them, because
Mm-hmm.
that makes them feel individual and they're not
Well, I mean,
lumped together.
and to your point, like there are so many days in the week, so like you could, one child could have like that's their day where it's like you and me are going for a
Well,
walk today, and
doing
then
something today, and tomorrow it will be your turn to do
Tuesday is
something fun.
somebody else's day. And yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I just think we have to try and remember what and you've done such a good job with this in your program too, Lindsay, is, you know, what are our triggers, what will set us off, and be reflective enough to know that, wow, you don't get to walk away in on this desert island, you're still stuck there. And so it's about learning new ways to cope with things too. And in this stressful situation, I was talking to actually your grandmother, and we were talking about this whole setting. And I said, you know, Mom, the phrase "keep calm and carry on" came from Britain during the Second World War, when they were being bombed and houses were and they were sending their children to the country so they wouldn't be killed, and it was super stressful time, and the government came up with "keep calm and carry on." And I think with this, we may not be facing imminent danger like that, but we feel the stress of COVID. We're worried, and then this is on top of it. So I think trying to find all those ways that we can stay calm and our kids can stay calm will make everything go just a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's funny too, because especially in North America, like I think that one of the true gifts, which you can choose to capitalize it on it or not, is, you know, in North America, especially, we are go, go, go. Like our culture, our society is go, go, go all the time. And I truly feel that so much of the anxiety that we feel right now is because the world has halted. And instead of, you know, sort of rolling into it and like seeing this as an opportunity to spend time with the people that you love, like uninterrupted time with the people that you love, as opposed to feeling the stress. Like, I think it just sort of shifts everything, because I truly believe that this is a gift that if we use it well, like we could come out of this culturally entirely different than what we did going into it. So much more relaxed, so much more with our finger on the pulse of like what is important to us, as opposed to like, you know, all of the superficial things that we focused on before. And I think that, you know, it's sort of, it's just finding your flow, finding a slower flow that you can go with, and what works for you and your family. But I think you have to kind of slow down to be able to tap in, like, you know, to tap into it.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's and sometimes when you start building those non-negotiables, as you and Marcus did, you find that lots of things are really negotiable and they're not that important. And I know and you were a victim of this as much as anybody, when my stress level is high, I am like your father's like, oh my God, because I am go, go, go. I'm just getting on it. And it's super annoying, but it's the way. And I've been working hard not to be that person, because people say, Robin, you're so stressed out. Actually, I'm trying to de-stress out of things, but it's just, you know, and I think we just have to take a deep breath and go, you know, it's okay not to be that busy. It's okay. We're not failing. We're not, you know. I think it's okay as long as you're not baking bread. I think if you choose baking bread as your coping mechanism, I don't know. Well, I can't do that because of gluten and all the rest of it. Plus, I've never baked bread in my life, but whatever.
Well, yeah, your coping mechanism. I mean, like, well, baking bread is like, it's not the worst coping mechanism in the world.
We like to say my coping mechanism is walking.
Baking
is another thing that starts with a W is okay too, but only one or two glasses of that W stuff a night. That's all.
So, okay. So then if there is, just being really conscious of the time. So if there is one piece of advice that you would, you know, you would want to give parents right now, what would that be?
So I kind of, I hope you don't mind if I read it, because I kind of worked on it a little bit. So I put, one of the things is just to make time every day to go outside. It doesn't matter what the weather's like. It doesn't matter how you feel. That's super important, because being cooped up just is not.
Fresh air and vitamin D cures everything.
Yeah. Making time to connect. So I was reading an article in the paper about this mother who was saying to her son, all you are doing is playing video game, Minecraft on the computer. You need to do something else. But she went to say that, and then she watched him, and he was connecting with his friends because they were all from school. They were all playing Minecraft. So we have to think, you know, don't judge too quickly. Figure out what's happening there, because everybody needs time to connect. Your kids need to socialize. Socialization is super important. It's one thing I worry about with Madison not being in daycare. That's about the only thing I worry about with Madison not being in daycare. And if there were kids on the street, I wouldn't be worried about it at all. But because we can't make access with those kids on the street. So it's this little island. So, you know, let your kids connect with their friends. Take time to chill. We've over-programmed our kids. Just take that time. Make time to play together. You know, pull out those board games. Pull out those puzzles. Do those things together. And most importantly, I think, take time to reflect. And, you know, if a gratitude journal is something that you do, I think at the end of the day, especially in these times, we need to remember what we're grateful for. Or we go down that black hole and our emotional well-being is so compromised. So the way your family connects and interacts with you, like Lindsay said, will look very different when our upside down world writes itself. And I think truly, I'm with Lindsay. I think this is a gift. it's one of those gifts where you get it and you're going, oh my God, I'm not sure I
Yeah.
like this thing at all.
Who said it? But
Who gave me this?
Somebody said it was like a gift wrapped in shit.
Who gave me this? But I think the thing we have to also think about is our global community has just bitten us in the ass.
Mhm.
We are our community used to be a city or a town, and now it's a globe. That's how this thing started.
Mhm.
So our children are going to encounter this again. And in fact, we may. This is one time that a virus came across the world.
Mhm.
I think, if we learn what to do in this one, and 3 or 4 or 10 years down the line, it happens again, we'll be better equipped to deal with whatever comes our way. And I think this experience should make your kids more resilient, more independent, more connected as a family. And maybe that best kid you had before this started, an even better version of the best kid you thought you had. So that's my closing words.
I love that so much.
That's why I had to read it, honey.
Well, I think it's just so true. Like it's an opportunity, and even amidst the stress and all of it, like I think that if we can as a family sit down I think that reflection piece that you said is so big, because I think so much of the time, especially with all of this, like all of the positivity stuff that's out there right now, I think it's so important to actually allow your kids to, and allow yourself, which then you can teach to your children. But I think it's about feeling your feelings and feeling how you feel, and then reflecting on, sitting down at the dinner table every single day and be like, what was really great today? What was really hard today?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and how can we make it better tomorrow? And I think having those conversations and being able to hold, even if it's holding, but even if being hard, for your kids was, well, mommy, you yelled at me a lot today. Like, it's holding space to then be able to say, you're right. And that was really hard for me, and I'm sorry. And tomorrow, like, how can we make it, or whatever? Like, I think that,
how can we make this better together?
It's that reflection piece, because I think that so much, like I said before, like in North America, we just keep driving, we just keep pushing, we just keep moving ahead. And so now we have this amazing opportunity to slow down and actually look at the people that we're living with, and see who they truly are, because so much of the time we miss that,
how wonderful they are.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're really worried. There's a lot in the news about mental health and emotional health, and I think if you take those steps along the way, a lot of that can be avoided, because you're working along the way to deal with those stressors and to deal with those worries and to deal with all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't matter if your child is 6 or 16, they're worried,
Mm-hmm.
and they need to talk it out, and they need to think about it to talk it out. So I'm with you 100%. As always.
On that note, I just want to thank you, obviously, for coming on and for helping us work through it, because it is not an easy time, but you have this ability of breaking it down and, helping us see clearly what truly is most important, and helping us feel supported, because I think so much, especially as being a mom, we feel like all of this falls on our shoulders, and what's going to happen if we can't. And I think that knowing that it is just really about, that everyday kind of learning, and that, we're supported with our governments and our school systems, that they anticipate this, and that they're going to help us pick up this. It just makes me feel lighter just thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's not, you can only control things you can control. And
exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, On that note, thank you so much for coming on today. And guys, if you have any questions, so this is, recorded it. It's going to be posted in the group. If you have any additional questions, you can comment below the video, and we'll do our best to help answer them for you. Otherwise, it was an amazing opportunity to connect with a brilliant woman who also is my mom. So just thanks again, Mom, for coming on, and thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you soon. Okay, bye.
Bye.